Hey, did you know that there's an estimated 5 billion with a B plastic hand soap and cleaning bottles which are thrown away each year? And if that's not bad enough, you got to lug those things home from the supermarket. They're heavy and they turn out to be about 90% water. Plus, you got to ship those things. Not to mention those cleaners are usually have some type of nasty ingredients like chlorine and ammonia, which of course is nasty. That's what we call a lose situation for you and the planet. Blue Land is on a mission to eliminate single-use plastic by reinventing cleaning essentials to be better for you and the planet. Their idea is simple. They offer endlessly refillable cleaning products with a beautiful, cohesive design that looks great on your counter. All you got to do is fill your bottles with water. You drop in the tablets, and you wait for them to dissolve. You'll never have to grab bulky cleaning supplies from your grocery run. Refills start at just $2.25. You can even set up a subscription or buy in bulk for additional savings. And when you buy in bulk, it's about... I don't even know how to do the math on this, but it's a fraction of the counter space. I mean, if you live in an apartment like I do, you want to basically save all the space you can. Well, Blue Land helps you do it, and they help you from cleaning sprays, the hand soap, the toilet bowl cleaners, and laundry tablets. All Blue Land products are made with clean ingredients that you can feel good about. It's awesome. You can store up on your laundry detergent, and your toilet bowl cleaner, and all the stuff. And you can fit it in like half a drawer. Blue Land has a special offer for our listeners. Right now, get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/majority. You don't want to miss this. Blueland.com/majority, 15% off. That's blueland.com/majority. Get 15% off. Put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. In the meantime, now for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Monday, December 11th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Mindy Isser, writer and labor organizer based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on UAW's call for a ceasefire and its drive to unionize all auto workers in this country, or at least 150,000 of them. Meanwhile, U.S. vetoes a UN resolution for a ceasefire and continue to supply thousands of bombs to Israel to be dropped on civilians in Gaza. All this as mass hunger and dehydration threaten hundreds of thousands of people, and including children. Death toll in Gaza tops 18,000. Meanwhile, Biden trailing Trump in Michigan and Georgia amongst registered voters. House Republicans just about to lock in impeachment, despite the fact that they don't quite know what they're going to impeach Biden over. We reported on this Friday, but since then, the Texas Supreme Court is forcing a woman to continue to carry a non-viable fetus in her womb as they deliberate on whether they should force her to carry it until it's dead or inhibits her ability to have another child. EU policy makers agree to a new law to regulate AI. Saudi Arabia is stopping the most modest of goals, I should say, at the COP28. Jury begins deliberation on a Google antitrust case today. Tucker Carlson abandons his X streaming business model and copies this program as he decides to sell memberships.
Whoa.
Yep. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. It is Monday.
Fun.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Quotation marks, fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Or well not said. Thanks for joining us. Nevertheless, folks, another week of just, or I should say weekend of very just difficult reports out of Gaza as the onslaught continues. And it is increasingly unsafe for any type of food aid to get to people in Gaza. The images coming out, horrific. Death tally in Gaza tops 18,000. And just so that we can satisfy people who are still want to justify why this is happening, the death tally in Israel on October 7th actually dropped to 1147.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to remind people that the Biden administration was casting doubt on the numbers out of Gaza because it was a Hamas-run health ministry. And then quietly it was revealed, no, those numbers are quite accurate. But like, we're
More
not
important-
gonna,
Well, in public testimony.
but we're not going to also question whatsoever the fact that like Israel's numbers have now been decreasing and they've revised them multiple times. It was 1,400, then 1,200, and now less.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's going to be miscounting, but
Sure.
but the issue is that we were told time and time again this is like 5 and 9/11s or 6 9/11s, and I would just like that revised because at one point, when it was whatever it was 5 9/11s or 12 9/11s, it was presumably this justifies a certain amount of killing of Palestinian civilians. Because we know, I mean, the Israeli military has an algorithm. They think it's very positive if they can kill one Hamas fighter for every 2 civilians. They must have a calculation as to how many Hamas fighters are there. And so these numbers should be more transparent so that we can know how many Palestinian civilians have to die for this project that the Israelis have. And for those who obviously, who also say, there's not much that Biden can do, we're still waiting on this $14 billion supplement aid to Israel. But in the meantime, the administration has authority under the guise of it being an emergency to continue to provide Israel with bombs. And I'm not talking just the defensive things for the Iron Dome, but to continue to provide bombs to be dropped on Palestinian civilians.
Tank shells.
Talking about tank shells now. But there's no, I mean, it seems quite clear, right? I mean, if the idea is that Hamas is all in tunnels, then, we know that a significant percentage of the bombs are meant by design not a bug, but rather a feature to be dropped on civilians.
Well, I mean, come on, the bombs would draw out the Hamas fighters, right? Because for some reason they would see the bombs and say, "Hey, that's the place where I want to go."
Supposedly, I guess. I don't know. That's the theory.
Thank you for that logic, Israel.
But
That's why there's no British people in London anymore, because Hitler bombed them.
I should say, despite the fact that, like, the UN, the U.S. Vetoed a resolution for a ceasefire at the Security Council at the UN, this would have been a pretty, easy move by the Biden administration to just even maybe abstain from voting. But no, they are actively protecting the Israelis' ability to continue to punish the Palestinian people, despite the fact that we've now heard Anthony Blinken repeatedly says he is upset with how much Israel is not protecting civilians. But, after a couple of weeks or after 5 or 6 weeks of saying the same thing, maybe you get the notion that they're not going to do it. All this said, 55% of this is according to the Wall Street Journal. It's a Wall Street Journal poll. 55% of those polled say they believe Israel is taking the military action needed to defend itself and prevent another attack by Hamas. 25% of respondents who said Israel's military action is disproportionate and going too far. 42% of voters say they sympathize more with the Israeli people compared to 12% who said the same of the Palestinian people. Presumably, there is a 35 to 40% percentage that sympathizes with both. 37%, and this is the irony. If 55% think that Israel is taking the military action it's needed, you would imagine they would be happy with what Biden's doing. 37% of those polled say they approved of his handling of the conflict. 52% disapprove. Because in all of this polling, the only sort of non-control factor is what the Democrats are saying. Mm-hmm. And what younger people, older people are saying. The Republicans are always going to say more military aid to Israel. And that if Biden gives it to him, he's still not handling it properly. 2/3 of Republicans say they were more sympathetic to Israelis compared with 2% who sympathize more with Palestinians. That number on Democrats is 25% say they are sympathetic to Palestinians, and 17% who say they sympathize more with the Israeli people. So the Democratic Party is, split to some degree, but to the extent that it's not, it is more sympathetic with the Palestinian people.
This is the dynamic of, like, we couldn't stand Nancy Pelosi in her, like, tenure as leader for speaker and had so many problems. And then you look at the approval rating and you get a little bit outside.
Right.
And just standard Democrats who aren't going to pay too much attention. Or if they're listening to MSNBC, which keeps calling this a war between Israel and Hamas as opposed to crimes of genocide, they're just going to take that and run with it. And
it's true, but Democrats are far more likely to be sympathetic to Palestinians at this point than Republicans. Like I say, 25% sympathetic to Palestinians, 17% they sympathize more with the Israeli people. Half said they were equally sympathetic to both. Republicans, 2/3, 66% were more sympathetic to Israelis, 2% with the Palestinians. 17% said they sympathize with both groups. Democrats under the age of 50 have more sympathy with the Palestinians by a margin of 35 to 13%. Democrats over 50 sympathize with Israelis by a margin of 22 to 12%.
Did they narrow down those under 50 figures even more? Because I'd imagine under 35.
Oh, like under 30. Yeah, I would imagine the younger you go.
Heavily weighted, yeah.
Meanwhile, today is a called for a general strike in support of Palestinian people. Here are some images This is protesters inside Israeli shipping companies. This is in Canada. Let's play this number 2. Now, I think some of these people are workers. I'm not quite sure.
On December 11th, we cannot collectively let Western participation in genocide and racist narratives continue to control our responses to mass murder. We must use our legal power to refuse the unquestioned Canadian, American, and European support for Israel's murderous campaign against Palestine. That's why today's action is connected with several others happening at same offices in major city centers across so-called Canada. And now, in case you missed what I said at the outset, let me say it again. Zim Shipping International, who owns an office in this building, is a war profiteer that is supplying weapons and goods to Israel so that they may continue to bomb thousands of pounds on December 11th.
Let's play a clip from people, and this is from outside of the New York Times building, and this is from this morning. There's protests going happening all day today in New York. I think the last at Barclays at 6 in Brooklyn. Also, there is a movie called Israelism. I have yet to see it, but I've heard very good things about this documentary.
I think Ben Burgess has saw it and reviewed it, maybe, but I've heard a lot about it too.
Peter Beinart interviewed in this movie. As Noam Chomsky interviewed, and it's about essentially the story is, and I don't know how aware people are of this, but it is about American Jews, 2 of them, who there's many programs for American Jews to go to Israel for short periods of time. I, as a 15-year-old, I think it was our confirmation class, went for 2 months, and then returned at least once or twice over the next 5 or 6 years, once with my family. But part of these trips are sponsored by organizations to deepen the relationship between American Jewry and Israel. And it's a fascinating country in and of itself. I mean, in terms of the history and in terms of like the, but those who get a little bit more deeper involved in it begin to see the things that are problematic. This film, I think, outlines that, and it obviously was in production and prior to October 7th, and it is going around. But today, you can go and get free tickets to see a virtual screening, only for North American viewers. It's going to be tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, and there's going to be question and answer with the team who produced it. So check it out. Again, Beinhart, Nor Erakat, others.
Great.
In the film.
Figures, yeah. It's interesting that they were protesting outside of the New York Times, just because I'm sure, Sam, you saw like that article over the weekend in the New York Times about Hamas, saying what the Israeli press and people in the pro-Palestine movement have been saying for many years at this point, highlighting the documented bolstering of Hamas by the Netanyahu government. And like I think print coverage has been definitely much better than cable coverage on this, in terms of really highlighting the plight of the
It's a little late in the day, though. I mean, for this 2 months into it, right?
But what's frustrating, yeah, again, like we said this. I think we did a segment maybe like 3 or 4 days after October 7th, highlighting the Haaretz reports about the Netanyahu government bolstering Hamas, and now maybe some liberals will pay attention now that it's in the New York Times. But they have those quotes that we mentioned about the Netanyahu government saying, Netanyahu saying, one effective way to prevent a two-state solution is to divide between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. That was an advisor to Netanyahu, and Smotrich himself saying the Palestinian Authority is a burden, Hamas is an asset, and documenting the fact
both kind of assets. But go on.
Well, yeah, but the Israeli government is essentially has allowed, as a part of its policy, actively money to go to Hamas because they know it's a useful scapegoat for them to continue to do exactly what they want to do, and that helps paint the entire Palestinian population as either terrorists or supporters of terrorists.
It is inevitable. I say the inevitable response as to like what should have Israel have done. Well, the first thing that Israel could have done in terms of response to October 7th, aside from being remotely proportionate in its response, it may be a non-starter for some people to say, well, you have to understand the dynamic here in terms of the occupation, but even in terms of having some proportionate response or more targeted towards Hamas, you could have cut off the money to Hamas. Yeah. You could have used that as a mechanism in which to build up a different entity in Palestine. But the point is that there has been no partner on the Israeli side for never mind a one-state solution, a two-state solution for decades. Decades.
Before it was Hamas, it was the PLO, and they said the exact same thing about it. And Hamas is just a more recent product of divide and conquer.
Right, exactly. And so, nevertheless, though that we will put a link to the Israelism film in the podcast and YouTube description, and maybe we can find. But I think if you Google December 11th protests in New York City, you can find it. I can't remember where I saw the list of what was happening today, but you can check that out. And I would imagine in your local area as well. Before we get to Mindy Isser on the UAW's call for a ceasefire and also their move, how they intend to try and unionize across the country, couple of words from our sponsors. People are buying gifts. We're already halfway through Hanukkah at this point. And with my kid, it's super easy because all I got to do is do anything that's themed with cats.
Yes.
Particularly his cats. It's actually like, I realize now I didn't have to buy anything. I could have gotten like stickers with the cats' faces on it. And
or more cats.
Yeah, not going to do that. But if he was looking to buy me something, this is what I would love is Cozy Earth, because they have the most incredible sheets and bedding, but also like loungewear, socks. Super into the Cozy Earth socks right now. And now would be the time that I would tell my son to do it because he's only 10. He doesn't have a lot of cash available to him. Certainly not that I haven't given him anyways. But right now, 40% off at CozyEarth.com. Enter Majority Report at checkout. You will get 40% off. Like I say, Cozy Earth has luxury bedding that is made from viscose. I don't know what that means, viscose. But
bamboo?
I guess it's from bamboo. And it is, I know you think of bamboo, you don't think soft. It's incredibly soft. And obviously extremely durable, but they're really soft. But most importantly for me, they are temperature regulating. That is what I love about Cozy Earth sheets, because I sleep too hot, and these regulate your temperature. I don't know how else to say it. They get softer every time you wash them. They are super friendly to sensitive skin, which longtime listeners and viewers know I have very delicate skin in terms of my eczema. I don't know what to tell you folks. Maybe that's too much information. They have 9 colors for their sheets. And like I say, they also have stuff like pajamas. They have super comfortable loungewear. I got a great pair of joggers, like sweatpanty things that you can actually wear outside.
Right. And you don't look like a slob.
Exactly. They also have really soft towels. So check it out, Cozy Earth. And now they have something called a cuddle blanket. I have not looked into that, I got to be honest.
Wow.
But
I need to do a video review of that.
My guess is, that would have been on your birthday, when your day off, in a cuddle blanket, playing video games. If you want people on the list to feel better, sleep better, and smile when they think of you, you couldn't choose a better gift than Cozy Earth. And here is our gift to you. Go to CozyEarth.com, enter my code Majority Report at checkout. Majority Report at checkout. Save up to 40%. 4T. 40%. That's CozyEarth.com, code Majority Report, CozyEarth.com. Also, on today's program, one of our sponsors, Nuts.com. Still right here.
Whoa.
You're at the grocery store. You can get pecans, but you can't get bourbon pecans. You can't get sweet and spicy pecans. You can't get pecan brittle or butter toffee pecans. And if you want to try high quality nuts in a variety of ways, head to nuts.com. You'll see the hundreds of different varieties of nuts they offer. I want to thank nuts.com for the support and for the almonds that I have almost ended. And I didn't really have any of Emma's cashews. Right now, when you go to nuts.com/majority, new customers get a free gift with a purchase and free shipping on orders of $29 or more. This is also great gifts for the holidays. You can get roasted nuts at nuts.com. You can get dried fruit, despite it called nuts.com.
Right.
Dried fruit, obviously
There's more.
not nuts, but sweets, pantry staples like specialty flours and more. It really is like one of those like high-end boutique stores you'd go into with nuts and all that. I've been into those in Brooklyn, but you can't find them anywhere. Nuts.com, quality is a top priority. They roast their nuts and pop their corn on the same day it ships, so they reach you deliciously fresh. Satisfaction guaranteed. The almonds are delicious. The mixed nuts were delicious. I finished them all. And I had 1 or 2 of your cashews. And those were also delicious. And go check out the variety at nuts.com. That's the amazing thing about it. They got gluten-free options. They got organic choices. They got other diet-friendly products. Doesn't matter if you're looking for something sweet or something savory. Need to stock up on everyday cooking essentials. You're bound to find something to try. And like I say, honestly, great gifts. You could shop a la carte anytime or opt into hassle-free auto delivery so you never run out of your favorite items. If you're already stocked up at home, they sell directly to businesses as well. Right now, nuts.com offering new customers a free gift with purchase, free shipping on orders $29 or more at nuts.com/majority. Go check out all the delicious options at nuts.com/majority. Don't forget, you get a free gift and free shipping when you spend $29 or more. We'll put a link in the podcast and YouTube description. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Mindy Isser, writer and labor organizer based in Philadelphia. We spoke to her last week. Here is that interview now. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. It's a pleasure to welcome to the program Mindy Isser, labor writer based in Philadelphia. Mindy, thanks so much for joining us. You have a piece that in these times, writing about the UAW endorsing a ceasefire, the largest U.S. union to call for an immediate end to the violence in the conflict between Israel and really Gaza, I guess, or the war.
Give us a sense of like what led up to that. Yeah, I think a lot has led to this moment, a lot of internal work in the union that maybe many don't know about. So there's a reform caucus in the UAW called UAWD that fought really hard to institute a one member, one vote situation. So members could directly elect the leaders of their union. And they won that. And so this past union election for new leadership was a one member, one vote election. And Sean Fain, who's now the current president, ran with the support of UAWD. He ran as a reformer, and he was running against the incumbent Ray Curry. He won very, very narrowly. It went to a runoff, and he ended up winning by 500 votes. And basically, right after taking office, he went into bargaining with the big three, essentially. There was a big convention to meet about bargaining priorities for the big three, and then they started bargaining. And then, of course, they had the historic stand-up strike, which was the first time that workers at all of the big three companies were out on strike at the same time, which was huge. I think very disorienting for the auto industry. And I think it was a really different thing than they were used to. Obviously, the UAW has been mired in corruption and, deals with previous UAW leadership. And Sean Fain took a totally different tone. People might remember that he didn't shake hands with the big three CEOs his predecessors did at the start of bargaining, because he wanted to show that he was really there representing his members. It was adversarial. It wasn't, it wasn't all kumbaya. And then after 40 days on strike, they did win historic contracts for the big three. And then right after that, they pivoted to announcing that they were going to launch campaigns at all of the non-union auto factories around the country with the goal of organizing 150,000 non-union auto workers. And then they announced that they were supporting a ceasefire. So yes, it's been a huge banner year for the UAW, and it's very exciting to see what is going to come next for them.
What I find fascinating about this story is that we're seeing the implications of process and how it implicates goals and strategy, because we're seeing the shift, that one shift, which on its face just looks like a different way of electing leadership, and which one I think seems obvious to people, where each person gets to vote as opposed to like a slate, electing a committee to provide a slate. This ends up changing the nature of the unionism that's being practiced. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's completely right. It's a totally different orientation to what a union is, what it can be, and who the union is and who it's for. I think there's been, an old school mentality in a lot of unions, that our job is just basically, we're an insurance policy for workers. We help them keep their jobs. We help maintain the status quo. We help maintain wages and benefits. And of course, all of that stuff is important. Job security, wages, and benefits. Of course. Bargaining is so important. But unions used to be, and I think can be and will be again, a home for the working class, a source of struggle for the working class, a place where workers can actually experience democracy, be part of a democratic process, and feel powerful and feel like they are the people who make this world possible, run the world. And they are, and they do. And you can see this reflected in the communications coming out of the UAW. I don't know if people listening saw their most recent video about their new campaign to organize non-union auto workers, but it's all about workers who, are in the frame, and they put up their hands and they say, these hands punch the clock, these hands built the cars, these hands built our country, and we're going to be the ones to make the decision about our future. And I think Sean Fain, the way he is leading the union, it's not just about wages and benefits. He talks about this often. It's about the right to have a life. People don't only care about work. People work as a means to have their lives, to spend time with their family, to have the freedom to make choices. And when we have bad jobs, when we don't have control over our schedules, when our wages are too low, we don't actually have the ability to be full humans. And I think the direction of the UAW is saying we are organizing humans. We're organizing workers who have families, who have spouses, who have children, and communities, and we want to see all of those people and things thrive.
All right. So, but what you're talking about is, I mean, is an expansion of like what constitutes the material benefits that a union can provide for its workers, right? But when we start talking about weighing in on a ceasefire, and this isn't this, and we should be clear, the UAW has a history of engaging in these type of political questions. So this isn't. This is, if anything, a return to the mean as opposed to anything else. But what are the implications of that, right? I mean, the material existence of a worker in Michigan or Ohio working at a car manufacturer is not really going to be implicated materially by what goes on as to whether there's a ceasefire or not. So, I mean, what's the theory behind this, or what's the impetus behind it?
Well, first, I have to disagree that people won't be impacted materially. I think they're impacted in two ways. And it's interesting that the first state you said was Michigan, because obviously the UAW is very strong in Michigan, not as strong as it once was, but there's a huge population of Arab auto workers in Michigan and Dearborn and Hamtramck outside of Detroit. There has been for a long time, and there's been a history of Arab workers standing up to their union and saying, you need to be on the right side of the Israel-Palestine war conflict, whatever you want to refer to it as. And in the 1970s, there was a wildcat strike about this very issue, about the UAW investing in Israeli bonds. And so I think there are workers who are impacted by what's going on in Gaza because that's where they're from. That's where their family is from. That's where they still are. And then in a less, material way, but still, I think really important and powerful is that a worker in Palestine and a worker in the United States, we all have the same desires, which is to have a life. And that just goes back to what I was saying earlier about the way Sean Fain is leading the union. And then, of course, there is the issue of how the U.S. is spending their money. Are they spending it on improving the lives of the working class here? No, they're spending it on supporting the death of 6,000 or 7,000 innocent children across the world. And I think any person can be against that and is against that. And we've seen in polling that the vast majority of voters support a ceasefire. And obviously it's not everyone. And I think it is, a big step, and it is, in direct conflict with what the AFL-CIO said for the UAW to come out and say this. It's brave, but it's important and it's necessary. And it's also good to note that the UAW is not the only union who has called for a ceasefire. The American Postal Workers Union has called for a ceasefire, the National Nurses Union, the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, the United Electrical Workers, and then, many local unions, including the Chicago Teachers Unions. They've all called for a ceasefire. So I think, that is what solidarity is. I was watching the live stream of the hunger strike in front of the White House last week. And that's when the announcement of the UAW support was shared. And Cynthia Nixon, obviously, we know her from Sex and the City and running for mayor of New York. She spoke about being a 45-year union member. And she said, unions are about the little guy standing up to the big guy, the person who has more resources and more power. And it's all about solidarity. And like Palestine in this situation is the little guy. And it's our obligation as working people to stand with them. And I personally find it very moving.
You mentioned Chicago Teachers Union, and I think in many respects, a lot of people peg that the strikes that they had, I think it was now, 10, 12 years ago, as sort of the beginning of this era of unionization. One of the things too that Karen Lewis, who is the head of that union, would talk about, and this was most prominent, it seemed like that time, within teachers union, is this idea of social justice unionism as opposed to managerial unionism. And it is one thing, for the teachers and for nurses to do this because they have a direct relationship with their clients, if you will, right? I mean, you're a teacher, you're talking to your students, you're talking to the parents every day. You're a nurse, you're talking to your patients, you're talking to their families. And this idea of adopting the fight for issues that may be of interest to the community, but not a direct interest to your job as a union, theoretically, it expands the sort of are we seeing that now sort of like develop more union, I guess, throughout unions outside of those sort of like specific sectors? And how much does Fain's call for unions to time their contracts around May 1st, 2028, how much does that also implicated in that shift?
Yeah, I think the idea of bargaining for the common good, like what you're talking about, it's not just for the workers themselves, their wages and benefits, it's for the entire community, is amazing and beautiful. And I think we're seeing it more and more. It's still, not, I think, totally ubiquitous. But I think the timing of the contracts is really huge, really exciting. I mean, it would be amazing to see so many workers out on strike on May Day in 2028. I also think, we need to be a little bit honest that union density in this country is 10%. It's very, very low. And we don't have a lot of power, and our power is growing. And people like Sean Fain are really invested in growing union density, growing our movement. But it's very difficult in a country with the labor laws that we have and how powerless workers are. So I think we need to be very sober how we're looking at this, while also being excited and optimistic about new union fights, new campaigns, new contracts, new ways of organizing people.
Yeah, Mindy, could you just put this particular topic or, the UAW weighing in on a ceasefire here within the context of other times that the UAW, as one of the, the United States' most prominent unions, has weighed in historically on things like apartheid in South Africa and other, international moments that required that kind of solidarity?
Yeah, I mean, there is a history of the UAW, being opposed to South African apartheid and being opposed to the Vietnam War and honestly taking unpopular positions. So this isn't totally new, but I think that, in the last, maybe the last few decades, the union had kind of taken a different tone and been sort of less political and more like, have a nicer relationship with the employer, especially after the 2008 economic crash. So I think it's really nice to see the UAW getting back to these kinds of roots where they have opposed, World War I and the Vietnam War and things like that.
Lastly, this push by Fain to unionize 150,000 new workers. I mean, do we yet have a sense of how that campaign is going to be rolled out, what it's going to involve? I imagine it's not something that they're going to broadcast in terms of where they're first going to go, but do we have any ideas? Yeah,
so I don't quote me on this. This isn't exactly it, but I think they have the ability, any auto worker in this country who's non-union has the ability to sign an online card right now So I think if you go to the UAW website, it will be clear how you can do that to express your support for unionizing. And then when shops, like different factories, get to a certain percentage of support, the union will go public with the campaign at this specific shop. So let's say like the Tesla shop in Northern California, I don't know actually where it is, if they get to 50% of support on cards, there will be a big rally at the factory to announce their campaign with Sean Fain and workers and community members and politicians and whoever else. And then when they get to 70% support, they will ask for voluntary recognition from the employer. And then if they get denied, they will go to a union election. So the goal is to, I think, quietly build support. Once they get to a majority, go very public in a huge way, like, big rally. And then when they get to a super majority of 70%, that's when they will ask for union recognition. So I've never seen anything like this at this scale. I think it's very cool. I'm really excited.
Is there I'm just curious, is there I certainly understand why you keep it quiet, right? At least till you get 50%. But is there a reason why, is there a strategy behind the idea of 50% as opposed to, let's say, 60%? Do organizers have a sense of if we get to 51% and we bring in more resources, it becomes more of a fair fight relative to what we know management's going to want to do to quash that union, and then they don't feel comfortable, going full on and having a vote, or at least pressing for a vote until we're at 70%. How do those numbers get generated, or is that just something, experience that organizers have?
Yeah, so to file for a union election, you need 30% of eligible workers on union authorization cards, but obviously 30% doesn't win a union vote, and then you have to, account for drop off because of the boss fight, which is very much legal in this country, and it's very much lethal. It works very, very well, unfortunately. So 50%, that's a majority. That's a great number. And I think that's enough to show, again, I'm not in Sean Fain's head. I don't work for the UAW, but that's enough to show that, hey, we have majority support. You can turn to any of your coworkers and they're probably with the union and you should be too. And then when you get to 70%, that's a huge number that I think the union would feel safe saying we want voluntary recognition. And then if they don't get it, feel safe going to an election, because even if there's drop off, they'll still win. And I think it's one of those things that builds on itself. If you've been on the fence because you're afraid, or you had a negative union experience in the past, or whatever it is, if you look around and you see 70% of your coworkers support this, including people who have been there for a long time, people you respect, people who are very good at their jobs, people who are natural leaders, you're going to say, okay, I'm on board too.
Mindy Isser, labor writer based in Philadelphia. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. We'll put a link to your piece in these times at majority.fm and the podcast and YouTube description. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report.
There we are.
That was an interview we did last week, and just one IM, and then we'll head into the fun half. Chris Burdick on the IM says, not telling you how to run the show, Sam, but when your guest mentioned Cynthia Nixon, that would have been the perfect opportunity for you to segue to your Sex and the City clip. We opted not to do that. Of course, we always have that clip at the ready, just in case any.
We should. It's an iconic scene.
It's an iconic scene, just in case anybody brings up Cynthia Nixon, or for that matter, sex, or for that matter, a city. So,
or Steak,
or any related shows on HBO.
Correct.
Like Gilded Age.
Correct.
Or the
Sometimes
Knicks.
we'll just play it when people say Girls or Sopranos. or
The Wire.
The Wire. There you have it. But we should be pulling this too. We will. I keep getting these random requests to replay the War on Christmas video. We will play that. Maybe we'll do it in the fun half today. Whoa. We got a lot of stuff to get to though. Folks, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com if you're listening to the program a couple of times a week, even one time a week. But on a consistent basis, your support makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you get the free show, free of commercials, and you get to IM the show via our app. Other people can use the app, but you can IM us through it. You can get that at majorityapp.com. Don't forget, merch.
Yes.
Shop.majorityreportradio.com. If you're a member, look for that email we sent a week or two ago with your discount. But if you're not a member, still head over there. There's some great Majority Report gear.
Yeah, you got all the days of the week on one.
Somebody sent me a link.
Yeah.
Actually, it was Hassan sent me a link to the Steven Crowder is doing a giveaway for, like, if you buy a certain amount of stuff on his merch store, you automatically get entered into a raffle every day for like a 72-inch TV. And I mean, I was like, I saw that and I'm like, I wonder if his account was hacked. But no, I think Crowder is just, he's got a blockbuster interview today about how Alex Jones is back on Twitter.
So he's downstream now from Tucker, who's already downstream from the.
It's weird. I don't
crazies.
get, like, people. I saw somebody say, like, Elon Musk brought Alex Jones back for clicks. It's like, is that why?
No.
Because, like, does he really drive clicks like that anymore, or is it because he's part of, like, a weird constellation of reactionaries and they're all friends?
Well, also, you bring back Alex Jones. Who can't you bring back? Right? I mean, you're creating space for yourself to just sort of like, and yes, I do think that, like, Alex Jones probably brings you a little bit of like views or clicks or whatnot, but it also sort of like, it exposes you, his audience is sort of lost in the wilderness. So nevertheless, jointhemajorityreport.com is the way you can support this program. Also, justcoffee.coop. You're looking for more gifts? There's nothing better than some Just Coffee. Introduce people to this great coffee roaster in Madison, Wisconsin. They're a co-op. They have all sorts of coffee blends. They have the Majority Report blend and great gifts. I think you can get them on a subscription, but I'm not sure if they'll do that. But nevertheless, use the coupon code Majority to get 10% off. And Emma, ESVN.
We'll be speaking about Mahomes' freak out, why it made no sense, but, we'll give a full breakdown about why that was a penalty on Kadarius Toney. Is Justin Herbert broken? The Ravens-Rams thriller, as well as the resurgence of the Cowboys, and if they're playing good enough football to actually compete with the 49ers. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
Matt.
This weekend for Left Reckoning patrons at patreon.com/Left Reckoning, we talked about David Griscom's new article in Jacobin, when black and white tenant farmers joined together to take on the Plantation South. It's about the Southern Tenant Farmers Union and cross-racial organizing. So check that out, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
Folks, we'll see you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy.
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it to my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Cedar! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ.
Yeah, or a couple of them, just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males.
Psych. Fuck them. Fuck them. Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter.
Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100.
Can't knock the hustle.
Come on, fuck them.
Things I do for the bigger game plan.
By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back. Sam Cedar, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. We will take a phone call shortly. You can IM us if you are a member via the app at majorityapp.com. We will turn on the phones in a moment. First, Ayman Moladeen on his MSNBC show on Sunday had Representative Shontel Brown, Democrat from Ohio, on. You'll recall that we've talked about this quite a bit. The DMFI, which is basically the front group for AIPAC, in their assault on progressive Democrats. Their strategy makes even more sense in the context of today than perhaps it was a little bit more unclear. Although we talked about it, but it really is in stark relief. They have, for the past two cycles, been attacking progressive Democrats. They also support Republicans, to be fair. 106, I think they've given money to in terms of the House. But they attack progressive Democrats.
In primaries.
Yeah. And often never mention Israel whatsoever, even though that is their primary concern. It's obviously their organizing principle is support of Israel. They will attack progressives on other issues and literally flood money in. They have $100 million to do that in this cycle. Last cycle, I think it was probably closer to half that. But they would go into races and dump a ton of money in the last couple of weeks, overwhelming progressive candidates. Although Summer Lee managed to sustain herself.
Twice, both when they poured money in during her primary and during the general election cycle.
And Shontel Brown was the beneficiary of outside spending on her behalf in the weeks going up to the election against her and Nina Turner. And here is Shontel Brown on MSNBC's Ayman Moladeen.
Let me ask you really quickly about enablers for a moment, Congress. It's something we talk a lot about on the show, and that is AIPAC. It has affiliates, and its affiliates, they've endorsed 109 January 6 insurrectionists. I know you've received some funds from AIPAC. How do you reconcile this, and will you accept funds from them this cycle, given the fact that you talk so openly against those that try to overturn our democracy but receive money from an organization that supports those very same politicians?
Well, their organization has members and members that support some of the same policies that I do. So I don't have the privilege of identifying who supports what. We get our contributions and we are grateful for the support that we receive. But I will continue to represent all of my constituents in the 11th Congressional District to make sure that I am bringing the democratic policies, principles, and values to the halls of Congress every single day.
Can we go back to that? Because I want to try and decipher what she's saying here. Now, I got it wrong. It's 109. I said 106. But clearly, I don't know this because I haven't got, I didn't do my independent research. I've read about this multiple times. I was off by 3, but I didn't make up this number. Now, I don't have any particular privilege that anyone else has in regards to assessing who got that money. It is, I read it. Now, I don't get money from this organization, so I don't even feel an obligation to know other than the fact that I keep reading about it. So I'm not exactly sure. I'm privileged in other ways, but I don't have any special insight into that.
Yeah, check your campaign disclosure form privilege, Sam.
Yeah, and so I'm curious as to what she means here. Let's just play this again. Maybe I can decide.
I'm not privileged enough to know that AIPAC is giving it to Jan Sixers. That's, I think, what she's ultimately saying.
I mean, you don't like I say, it's really readily available. I find that hard to believe. But let's see what she said.
We'll see what she said.
Supports those very same politicians.
Well, their organization has members and members that support some of the same policies that I do. So I don't have the privilege of identifying who supports what. We get our contributions and we are grateful for the support that we.
This is very strange because who supports what? I sort of feel, here's the thing. You're running against a party that I think there's a very good argument that they are authoritarian. They are already talking as a party, not just Donald Trump, but as a party, how to cement their minoritarian rule, how to overthrow the civil service, essentially, that works in the executive branch of our government, how to take over the judiciary. They are, I think, very anti-democratic. I think there's a very good argument that our democracy is a bit blinkered in terms of who has more influence than others, without a doubt. But they are plotting and announcing it as to what their strategy is to take over the country. January 6th, the president was impeached because of it. There are ongoing trials because of it. People are going to jail because they were fake electors during it. And you've got a supporter who is pumping millions of dollars into your campaign and also doing the same for people who actively supported the insurrection. And you have no way of knowing this. It just seems a little shallow.
It's a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I think oddly, there's another way to interpret it in that she was trying to, basically obfuscate and claim that it was individual members of AIPAC or people that support AIPAC that were donating to her campaign, which sometimes happens when people are analyzing, say this candidate gets a ton of donations from Google. And then you look into it on the campaign disclosures and it's people that work at Google or people that, they're individuals as opposed
Bernie
to the organization itself.
Because of people that work for Chase donated for
Exactly. But that's not the case here. I mean, the AIPAC is not a multinational corporation with a ton of employees that are donating money to her campaign. AIPAC is using a front organization in Democratic primaries to flood the zone and support people like Chantel Brown, who are are going to be pro-Israel, and that's a given. But it also helps.
And say vote for the idea that being anti-Zionist is anti-Semitic.
Exactly. And that's their primary objective. But like the AIPAC donors also have a lot of other right-wing connections, as we know. That's why they support over 100, what was it, Republicans?
109 people who actually
tried to overturn the election.
Were involved in that decertifying the vote.
But their members support a lot of things I support, like Israel.
Right. And the point is there is like it's a 2-fer, it's a 3-fer, it's a 4-fer, it's a 5-fer, or whatever for conservatives, because you get to smear the left as anti-Semitic and then also put in Democrats who are going to be entirely toothless and won't oppose things like, tax cuts for the rich, or they might, at least not be as big of obstacles as, say, the really strong progressives like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Summer Lee are.
Let's go to the IMs. Stella the dog.
Our fave.
Genocide equals anti-Semitic, but roll with it because it's a cool thing to say.
It's super cool.
A couple of things about that. One, I don't see how genocide is anti-Semitic at all, frankly.
Tell that to Roz Siegel, who's a Holocaust scholar, who said that on October 13th, he wrote in Jewish Currents that these were crimes of genocide. And then a week later, 800 international human rights lawyers and scholars on this front said that they feared the crimes of genocide were being committed.
Of all the sort of tropes about anti-Semitism, the idea that Jews commit genocide, I've never heard of. But would it be more comfortable to say ethnic cleansing? Would it be more comfortable to say massacre? Would it be more comfortable to say, I don't know. And also the idea with it, roll with it because it's a cool thing to say. Like, in what context in my life do people actually think that, like, the cool people around me are like, that's really cool that you say it's genocide? Like, what circles do you think I run in that people think it's like?
I think I said it. So that's why, because I'm a
And then everyone around you is like, right on, Daddy-O.
Oh, yeah. I've used that term genocide in private conversations with people in my life. And every time they're like, God damn, are you cool? God damn, are you amazing?
You do that when you wear your leather coat.
With my Fonzie jacket.
Flip my shades down.
But the problem is like, actually, no, it's met with fierce opposition. But I think we have to be clear about what's happening.
Both sides want conflict. Hypocrisy to think only one side props up Hamas. Now, this is sort of a fascinating comment, because when we say both sides, we know that the Israeli population is around 80% wants to level Gaza. We know the Israeli government obviously has said in various different forms that they want to essentially annihilate Gaza and Palestinians. I mean, they're on record saying this. I have yet to see the polling of Palestinian people who say that they want this conflict. Now, of course, you can't take polls because they can't even get doctors in there. But in terms of one side propping up Hamas, do we have that? Pull up that graph from what is it called? The Arab Barometer. This was taken in, I think it was like early fall of 2023. You can look at the support that Hamas had in Palestine. 43% said none at all. How much do you trust do you have in the Hamas-led government? 43% none at all. 22% or 23% said not a lot. That's 65% for those of you playing at home. And then you had approximately 18 and I don't know what the average is there. Let's say 30%, somewhere between a great deal and quite a lot. It was clear in the fall prior to this that the Palestinian people did not support Hamas. Mm-hmm. They only got 45% of the vote in 2006. And that was a hastily called vote that was as much of a function of Israeli and U.S. foreign policy as anything else. So hypocrisy to think only one side props up Hamas. Like, the Palestinian people are not propping up Hamas, or weren't. Hamas could release the hostages at any time. Yes, that is true. They could.
But also Israel could have bargained for hostages immediately from the very beginning, and we wouldn't have had the bombing of Gaza to distract
and the
what happened
idea,
on October 7th.
The idea that these assaults on Gaza and on the killing of these 20,000 Palestinian people, nearly half of whom are children, and then the tens of thousands more that are injured, is a function of the hostages, is just completely belied by all the reporting, by all the facts. Even the people in Israel, even the Israeli citizenry, although they want to attack Gaza, do not believe that Netanyahu is trying to secure release of the hostages. Hanukkah is a holiday that marks Jewish persecution in Israel 2,000 years ago. Yes, actually, more specifically, Hanukkah is a holiday that celebrates the guerrilla fighters that would attack those who were occupying the first temple. It is literally a David versus Goliath holiday celebrating the victory of a small band of guerrilla fighters against the Greeks and the Syrians at the time. So I don't know. You should brush up on your Judaism, but Hanukkah is a Jewish holiday. It's a Jewish holiday. Words have meaning. Tell it to the experts.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to tell you.
They're the ones.
Negotiations with terrorists is not good foreign policy. You know what's also not good foreign policy? But you know what's also not good foreign policy? Well, first of all, you got the hostages released. But you know what else is not good foreign policy? It's making yourself a world pariah.
Yep.
And if you think for a moment that long term this is going to help Israel's standing in the world, survival, whatever you want to talk about, you're insane. You're insane. You know nothing of history, and it's insane.
Speaking of history, I just wanted to highlight this, and I printed this out earlier. Take with this what you will, but given the UN given the Security Council veto by the United States of a ceasefire, where the United States stood alone, not even the UK will stand with Israel at this point. They're voting present. They're not even supporting this, but the United States vetoed the resolution for a ceasefire. In 1974, the United States General Assembly, where U.S. veto power was not applicable and couldn't be used, ended up suspending South Africa from the United Nations in a vote of 91-22, suspending them from participation, going around the United States' veto power. In that instance as well, this is from the New York Times from 1974, the United States unsuccessfully challenged the ruling, which was also opposed by Britain, a number of Western Europeans and South Americans, and some others. 19 countries abstained, which should sound familiar because, as I just mentioned, Great Britain and the United States are the only countries on the Security Council that are standing with Israel at this point, and even Britain is voting present. Back then, the United States, Britain, and France used their veto power in the Security Council on October 30th to block an African-led campaign to expel South Africa from the United Nations. This was, and oddly, Palestine comes up at that point because the African countries were using their leverage in that debate to get this through. But that needs to be the next step here, because the United States, under the leadership of Joe Biden, has given a complete carte blanche to the Israeli government's complete crimes of genocide in Gaza, and I think it's fine to be clear about that and point that out. So it's not trendy. It's just trying to be precise in language, because I'm so sick of seeing it framed as Israel-Hamas war. Israel-Hamas war. Have there been some IDF soldiers that have died in their crimes, in their war crimes? That is absolutely true. But like on the side of the terrorist attack, we're seeing a decrease in reported death counts being reported as those get adjusted. We're not seeing any decrease in death totals in Gaza. In fact, the increases are just staggering every day, and likely an undercount as we approach 18,000 dead and nearly 50,000 wounded, plus the disease. 9 in 10 people in Gaza have had days where they haven't eaten anything at all. So, like, as you see those images of of Palestinian men nearly naked, stripped down, put on their knees by the IDF, and you see that death toll in just 2 months, like, look at the United Nations' step-by-step analysis of what constitutes a genocide, as did those scholars, and you'll be able to see that there is a very, very easy case to make on that front.
I'd also just make a quick point with regards to negotiating with terrorism. First of all, neither side is blameless of terrorism on that side. But also, I'd point to a series of articles written by Jonathan Powell, How to Talk to Terrorists. And that's in the context, without even getting into which side you liked, of the IRA in the UK. And actually, you need to treat these organizations, particularly when they start to play with a political process, as if you can do diplomacy with them. That's how you wind down these things. They always end with negotiations. And it's been Israel's problem that they insist on not taking, and it's so blatant when you look at how, like, Edward Said was treated on TV as I shouldn't even be in this room with this guy, let alone we should negotiate with them. And it's the same playbook being
well, it's
played
just
with
not
Hamas.
part of their agenda to do this.
Exactly.
I mean, it really is. I mean, the idea that I think those who rule Israel, and I think by extension, many Israelis, not all Israelis, but certainly what appears to be the majority, they're living in an anachronistic time where they have perceived, like, what we were able to do in this country with our indigenous people, essentially make them largely an irrelevant, their existence.
Surplus population.
Yes, by essentially, like, committing genocide, and then having, like, vestiges of their population, but not so much that it's really anything other than, like, an occasional, headache for an administrator somewhere.
Right. It's not a problem for the democracy.
Exactly. And I think, there was an attitude that, particularly upon its founding, and has persisted, that they can get to a place where they will do this with the Palestinians, that they will be able to make them irrelevant within the context of, like, politics. There may be some administrative stuff, and we may have to continue to do, it'll be a hassle here and there. But that's basically been the attitude. It certainly was the attitude in attempting to forge this sort of greater peace accord without consideration of the Palestinians. There was some type of, like, we are going to will them into being an afterthought. We are going to inhibit the ability of actually creating a two-state solution by putting facts on the ground in the West Bank, i.e., Russian and Brooklyn immigrants, to exist, 700,000 of them in illegal settlements in the West Bank. And what we're going to do is enhance as much. We're going to politically divide the Palestinian people as much as possible, and that's why we will enhance Hamas's stature, both by funding, by harassing, Fatah and the PLO in ways that we wouldn't harass Hamas over its development. I mean, this has quite clearly been the strategy for decades.
By imprisoning, the who many people consider the Palestinian Nelson Mandela, Marwan Barghouti, by basically cutting off any, like, leftist or secular mode of political actualization and power building by funding and propping up Hamas, as now has been well documented by the New York Times, the paper of record. I guess we didn't give a crap when Haaretz was reporting it. And Palestinian voices were showing that this was the case. But now, hopefully, the Times is breaking through.
And you mentioned facts on the ground. It's like they create facts on the ground, like by, like, the settlements, and also they remove facts on the ground, like when you bomb every university and civil building and court.
Or you steal all their books and put it in the fifth underground floor of the Israeli National Library.
All right, Sell the
Just as an
Dog. The
example.
Palestinian population grew by 2 million since the founding of Israel. They get aid from Israel. Thank you for identifying the fact that populations do grow over time. I think that it's fine to say that it was a cultural genocide up until this point and an ethnic cleansing campaign. And since October 7th, we have entered the active genocide. And then we can talk about the population decreases from that point on.
There's pressures on Palestinian women that aren't things that should be celebrated to help make up for that. That actually, like, if we wanted to be critical, but like say issues within like Palestinian culture, well, partially they're forced to because it's under an occupation and within refugee camps. But that's one reason you wouldn't want to be a Palestinian woman, because there's pressure to have children to try to make up for the fact that you are being ethnically cleansed.
But keep it up. Keep moving the goalposts on what constitutes a genocide, because we're saying the genocide started, at least I am, in response to October 7th, and that is clear in the death tolls. And it doesn't need to get to millions before we count it as a genocide, because if that's the case, we have failed so deeply as a society to learn the lessons from the Holocaust, and the other genocides that have been perpetrated by other governments. It's not just, there are many genocides of different scales, and this one is funded without any kind of guardrails by our government, and so that's why it's going to be the central focus. And it's on on steroids at this point.
Dave,
the amount of killing.
Dave from Ireland, are you saying, Sam, that the Assyrians didn't have the right to defend themselves? That's we should be clear that was a reference to the first or second century BC.
Here's a
struggle between the Maccabees, the people who were being occupied at that time, or really the temple in Jerusalem, we should say, was being occupied and renamed after a Greek god, I think it was, and they didn't take too kindly to that, so they launched what today you would consider terrorist attacks on the Greeks.
And you mentioned David and Goliath in that story. I'm reminded people should look out for that long 10-minute TikTok video of that settler, former Zionist, who speaks about how he finally, through a program with his university, was able to connect with a Palestinian young man of his age and ended up going to the either Gaza or the West Bank, I forget exactly what it is, saw a mural of a slingshot being thrown and thought initially that it was a reference to that story and thought, oh, look, we have this kind of shared cultural memory. And then a bus or a car moved away and it was a depiction of a Palestinian child doing a slingshot at an IDF soldier.
Yeah. I want to play this clip before we move on. This is from Jeff Halper, who's one of the founders of the Israeli Committee Against Housing Demolitions. He's a guy from Minnesota who moved to Israel in the 70s, already as a sort of critic of the state. Interesting guy, but he talks about the context of genocide, and I do think this sort of the context pre-October 7th is one where people talk about the type of re-education Uyghur Muslims in China are forced to go through. And I think like the word genocide actually can crop up a little bit in different ways than people are maybe expected to from death camps, for instance. But here's Jeff Halper.
All against the genocide of the Palestinian people. And what we're saying is what's happening in Gaza is itself a war crime. The actual attack on Gaza
and just
might not.
By the way, this is from like a few weeks after the October 7th attack.
Rise to the level of genocide, which is the partial or destruction as a whole of a people. It certainly is a war crime. But if you put Gaza, which is one of the worst war crimes that Israel has committed, within the context of the last 76 years, from 1947. When actually the war against the Palestinians began, not just in 1948, but in 1947 until today and into the future, where Israel is trying to Judaize Palestine, where it's not only taking the land, but part of settler colonialism, which Zionism is that you have to erase the people. You have to get rid of them physically. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily killing them, Although Israel has killed a significant part of the Palestinian people over the years, 10,000 people have died over the last month in Gaza alone. But it also means destruction in the sense that a people can't reproduce itself. So when you throw the Palestinians off their land, which Israel did in 1948, where about 80% of the Palestinians were driven off the land and became refugees and are still refugees today. And that happened again in 1967. And when you disperse a people, so that half the Palestinian people are dispersed all over the world, from the refugee camps in the Middle East to Middle Eastern countries to countries all over the world. And then when you take the other half of the Palestinians and you fragment them into little parts of the West Bank, into the Gaza concentration camp, which it really is, and you don't allow those people to be in touch with it. The people in Gaza can't be in touch with the Palestinians that live in Israel, who are hardly in touch with Palestinians in the West Bank. Palestinians in Nablus can almost not be in contact with Palestinians in Hebron because it's very difficult and dangerous and sometimes impossible to travel. So in a sense, by displacing the Palestinians from their land and dispersing them and making it impossible for them to be in contact with each other, the different fragments of the Palestinian people, you're destroying their ability to reproduce themselves as a people.
There you go. All right, let's move on here on the IMs.
Thanks for the IM.
J Money. Hi, MR crew. My son was born in mid-November and had an extended stay in the NICU, the NICU, the Natal Intensive Care Unit. This show helped me stay sane during those 10 days at the hospital. Can I get a horn blast thing for my son? He came home on Sunday. Oh, great. Very happy to hear that. Oh, that must have been difficult. Jackie C. Mehdi addressed the end of his show last week, supposed to go until January 1st. He came out strong about failed media. Ayman was in his spot last night, but Ayman indicated his show was still on just one slot as usual. Huge backlash against Mehdi's show ending. Calling from Connecticut. Bum Day Monday. Also, Israel's probably just assuming every male above, 14 are Hamas. Basic assumptions about population, 50% male, 50% women, 1/3 children. Now it's bad PR to claim children are enemy and combatants, so let's remove those people. Misogynists assume... Okay, I can't get... Oh, I see. Where they pulled their 2-to-1 ratio from. Well, I mean, look, regardless of how they came up with the 2-to-1 ratio, it's exactly the ratio of military to civilians that were killed in the Hamas terror attack or partial terror attack. When you attack a military base, obviously it's not a terror attack. When you attack civilians, it is a terror attack. Now, I just don't know how, just because you have bombs that you're dropping, that when you are indiscriminately bombing, as we know the American government at least characterized this from, because they said they're no longer going to be indiscriminately bombing, a month and a half into this, or Biden said, I don't know how you don't consider that a terrorist attack. I don't know how, when you are targeting journalists or doctors or
universities.
We know that story coming out of the Israeli 972 magazine, that the Israeli government was targeting homes, buildings to hit professors, journalists, doctors. We know this. Now you can say that's anti-Semitic, but you're really, really stretching the bounds of it. But it is the last refuge. Moth. The UN has always accepted Gaza Health Ministry numbers as accurate in incidents prior to this too. The problem is Israel is constantly widening the net on who is Hamas. Indeed. Between the 101 and the 5. Hey, Sam, I randomly met Tom Sharpling over the weekend. My friend is a big fan of his, and I didn't know MR started on his show. Would love to hear the story. I didn't know that we hadn't said that, but what's that? Oh, I've addressed it many times. In the run-up to the Iraq War, Sharpling and I were good friends back then. I mean, great friends, but pretty good friends. We lost touch more. I mean, I occasionally will reach out to him, but Sharpling knew that I listened to a lot of talk radio. This is in 2003, before Air America, and he was doing the best show on FMU, which was a great call-in show, music show, everything show. It's now a podcast. And we would do comedy bits too. Sometimes like Benjamin would call in a lot, and I would call in sometimes. I did actually on the night of the election in 2000 as a character. And in fall 2002, he's like, you should do this. I'll give you 2 hours on my 3-hour show to do a AM talk radio show. And so I came on, I did the Majority Report. I think I still have the binder over there. It was all about the Project for New American Century. John Benjamin came with me out to New Jersey and did the intro of the show live. And Janine Garofalo was a guest on that show. And some dude, I can't remember his name, who was on Fox and Friends Weekend. And I did 2 hours. And that was how the Majority Report was born. And it was in February of 2003, just before a month before the Iraq War. And that's how the show was born. And you know what? We should release that for members. I got to go back and listen to how bad it was. It's so embarrassing. But I do have a CD of it somewhere. Sharpling had it on his thing, but they on the FMU, but it would bending the servers. And so they pulled that one episode.
If people want to sample best show, there's a very cringeworthy Billy Crystal bit where he talks like a jazz man from New Orleans, and Tom Sharpling takes a piss out of it for about 20 minutes. If you search best show Billy Crystal jazz man, it's a good video.
That's funny.
Damian, quick question. Has there been a reported increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes in the U.S. by something intense like 300%? I don't know that there's an increase. But do we know if any of this increase is defining hate crimes as protests against Israel? I mean, it depends on whose numbers you look at. I think the ADL includes any protest on behalf of Palestine as an anti-Semitic act. So it's a little bit hard to assess. My employer gave our whole team the day off in solidarity with the general strike.
Wow, good employer.
So should I start booking this MR West Coast tour we talked about? Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, 2 days in LA. Imagine that. We should definitely do it. Maybe, I'll sit down and really start to think about when I could do that. Because it would be fun. We'll take the whole show on the road for for a week. We'd have to do it. Yeah. We'd have to go Friday, get on the, take the plane out there, or Saturday and take the plane out there and then just barnstorm down. We'd have to rent a van and
they got trains.
A van. I'm out.
Yeah, I was going to say, can't we take a train or something?
Oh, we could take trains, actually. That would be fun. Yeah. I'll take a van. I'll just drive alongside the train. Sleep in the back.
Who's driving?
Come on, guys. We get the band back together.
Want to be in a car like that?
Oh, come on! Speaking of debunking IDF talking points, someone needs to start giving Ben Glebe the Dave Rubin treatment. Pretty impressive, yes. Sam from PDX. Hey, crew, I just sent an IM several weeks ago saying, we stan Emma? I don't know why he didn't put...
Stan is
No, I know, but he put an asterisk instead of the A.
Okay.
That is weird. I just wanted to clarify. I was trying to counter Bumbler's mean comments about her. Someone has to argue with Bumbler. All right, I'm not even.
Who is Bumbler?
I don't know. The app. I don't know.
No, Bumble is the app.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But thank you for letting me know that people are saying mean things about me.
Yeah, that's always
roasting your ass on Bumble.
Hey, I just want you to know I defended you from someone who was really important, saying bad things about you, and I had someone come up to me. Back in my days in Boston, came up to me and goes I heard you did really well in that play. I'm like, oh, well, thank you. I didn't like this person. And she was like, and I know it must be true because I heard it from someone who really doesn't like you. I was like, oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
That is good to hear. All right, the phone lines are on, ladies and gentlemen. Phone lines are expert dog kisser. They're really nice to you on Hinge.
Oh yeah.
Emma. According to, am I in the lines? Can you see me there? Oh wait, I don't think I'm in.
No, I can't see you.
Okay, now I'll get back in. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that sound signifies that I am taking your phone calls. Calling from a 510 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh my God, Sam, you took my call.
I did take your call. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
My name is Jenna, and I am from Fremont. And
Jenna
I'm
from
actually,
Fremont. Fremont,
California.
California.
First of all, I'm so excited to talk to you again. I talked to you about a year back. I'd gotten my facial feminization surgery, and also I talked to you about my boobs. I'm a trans activist.
Great.
And I actually texted in on Friday, and you read my text.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember.
I don't.
But anyway, it's okay. I know you go through a ton of stuff. I am a recovering fundamentalist Christian with a homeschool background.
Wow.
And yeah, it was brutal. We weren't quite as crazy as other homeschooled families because we had a TV, but it was quite insane. But anyway.
And I should say, not all homeschoolers. Late Michael Brooks was homeschooled, and he was.
I know.
Relatively normal. So.
Yeah. I'm sure he had a tough transition, no pun intended, as I did. But I transitioned twice. But
there you go.
Anyway, I've been having an absolutely amazing year, and I've been wanting to talk to you about it because first of all, I've told you this before, but I always have to tell you guys, all of you, I love so much how much you fight for us. Even when not many people on the left were doing it, you were. And it was so helpful. Like, you have no idea.
Oh, glad to hear that.
Absolutely. Part of my activism, I devote to talking and educating Christians about trans people because I feel like Christians are the biggest network to educate a lot of the normies who may not know much about us because, as you document very well, Republican Party, right-wing media, they are trying to erase us any way that they can. And I actually reached out to this Christian ska band, a member of it, called Five Iron Frenzy. And her name is Leonore. And I said, hey, I'm kind of desperate right now. Things are horrible. How would you feel about sitting down with me, a trans woman, you a Christian, and we have a conversation? And I was incredibly happy to learn that she said yes.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's at 1,400 views on YouTube right now. It is, and this was put out back in June.
Oh, wow.
And
good for you.
Yes. Oh, thank you. I'm super proud of it. And it's not just because it's my interview. I think it's a fantastic conversation. Binder has actually seen it, and he said that it was good.
That's good. All right, we'll check it out.
Yeah. Thank you. I emailed you it. Hopefully you can get the email link there.
Okay.
Also,
do you remember what you put in the subject line?
I put trans activist and recovering fundamentalist Christian.
Okay. All right. We don't get too many of those.
I don't think so. I can send it again if need be.
No. I think we can dig that out and we'll try and put a link to it. Do we have that, Bradley? All right. We'll link to that in today's show notes.
Oh my God! Thank you so much. That is so sweet of you.
You're welcome. Of course.
Also, I got a couple cool things to tell you too that I'm super excited about.
All right. It got to be quick. We got just.
Okay. Yeah. Gotta be quick. Okay. June, I was recognized by the city of Fremont as the LGBTQ plus representative.
Great.
And then I just finished an interview with the San Francisco Examiner. It's like a profile piece. And as soon as that comes out, I'll send that to you as well. And I would love for you to read it. I'm a lot of really cool things. On top of, I'm going to be hopefully getting my vagina in January. So
Wow. Well, congratulations.
yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you so much. Oh my God. Thank you for taking my call. I've been calling forever.
All right.
So,
Well, appreciate you calling in. We'll put a link to that interview with the ska band.
yes, please. Oh my God, you're the best.
All right. Well, thanks for the call. We got it. All right. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Pelux, Five Iron Frenzy is a super progressive Christian band. Some members don't even consider themselves Christian anymore. Well, nevertheless, it's how you begin to build these bridges.
I've heard of that band too, actually.
Censoring Sheep. I'm all in favor of Seattle MR show. It would be cool to meet everyone. Art Vandelay, Emma, there were some people who really didn't like you on OkCupid. I beat them up and got them fired from your jobs. You're welcome. Skippy McGee, my membership payment didn't go through, so I immediately corrected the error. Left is best. Fantastic. Bumbler, I haven't said anything mean about Emma. That I am was weird and cringe.
Thank you, Bumbler. Thank you.
Midi Doctors, Israel defense on civilian casualties is a comparison with another illegal war. Sam from PDX, good to know my IMs are completely unintelligible as usual. Buckets and buckets. Sam, with Pacman hitting 2 million, you have him on to boost MR on Twitch. You can have him on to boost MR on Twitch. Okay. Expert dog kisser. Oh, I already read that one. Anthony and Scalia's ghost. Do you all hear about Israel's plans to attack Lebanon? They even said they're not opposed to bombing Beirut. Calling from a 631 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Greg.
It's who? Dude, your phone's not good.
Sad. 631. That's Long Island, I believe.
Wait, are you there?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, who's this? Where are you calling from?
Can you hear me?
Please drive.
Oh, okay. This is Greg from Albany.
Greg from Albany. Please drive carefully.
Yes, I'm driving. I'm sorry. I'm going to pull over. So you guys were talking, I wanted to talk about Elise Stefanik for a little bit.
Okay.
You got a minute?
Sure.
So I am unfortunately in her district, and I am involved. I'm kind of involved with the local Democratic people, and I joined to sort of provide a, there are some new blood involved, which got me into it. To sort of, a lot of the local rural Democratic committees up here are just completely ossified, and so anyway, so we're trying to get, you had mentioned about who is going to run against her, and as of now, there's nobody running against her. Are you there still?
Yep.
Oh, okay, good. So I don't know if you know the district, but it's very red now. But in the past, it was a lot closer. And Bill Owens, there was a Democrat representing it for a while. He retired. Stefanik took over, and it's just gotten more and more Republican over the years. And we had decent candidates the last couple cycles, but they still lost by like 20 points. And so at this point, there's really no candidates running.
And we should say this district, right? The 21st, if I'm not mistaken, is like touches on Albany, or does it include Albany?
No, it doesn't include Albany.
But it's just north of Albany. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. It's like Latham and Schenectady and like that area, and Saratoga Springs. No.
Nope. Tonko, the 20th district is Tonko. Tonko represents Schenectady, Albany, most of Troy. Stefanik's district comes down into a little bit of Rensselaer County, which is Troy, and Saratoga Springs, and then the whole rest of it is very rural.
Okay, okay. Then it goes north from there.
Correct.
Okay,
And-
okay.
Right.
And
So-
Saratoga Springs is like old money, like horse racing money, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like the Hamptons of, upstate, basically. And then on top of that, with the redistricting, the district got more red. When the Democrats drew the original districts in the state, they basically figured they just kind of treated it like a Republican vote sink.
Yeah.
So that the other districts around it could be closer.
Yeah.
So, it seems like, the vibe from the local Democratic people is like, well, I guess we're just going to not bother. And like, nobody stepped up. The guy who ran last time, Matt Castelli, was a very good candidate for the district, but he lost by 20 points.
Wow.
So basically it seems like the idea, for the people on the ground here is to just kind of put their effort into helping New York 19, which is Molinaro.
Yes.
And New York 17, which is Lawler, and also to defend New York 18, which Pat Ryan represents, which is Kingston area, Hudson Valley.
Yep.
So I just wanted to,
why not?
let everybody know.
Why not run?
I thought about it.
I mean, look, there's two reasons why you can run, right? One is to win. The other is just to focus like a laser on one or two issues and create some liability for Stefanik there. I mean, all you're doing is tilling the ground for maybe someone else to run in the future. Or you are, in some way inhibiting her, her rise within the Republican Party. There is value in losing an election if you approach it, strategically, with some awareness. I don't know if you go out and you say, I'm going to lose this election, although you may, but it would be interesting to see if, if there's a way that it gives you a platform, and it may give you a platform. I mean, if you're running, right? If you're the only candidate, you're running. You say, I may be down in the polls, but, look at the attention that, Ron DeSantis or Chris Christie gets in the presidential election. I'm not down by that much, and it gives you an opportunity to pick a couple of issues, maybe, ones that are even more local, where that type of attention will help that local issue. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why you can run for an office like that. There's a lot of good you can do in a losing effort. But if you do end up running, let us know.
Oh yeah. Well, one more thing. One of the things I was trying to pitch to some of the people around here was like, look, when you have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene or the woman who ran against McConnell last time, if you're running against Elise Stefanik, you're going to get a national profile from Democrats who are going to hopefully send you a ton of money.
Not necessarily, because I know, would I promote sending money in that situation? Unlikely, because it's unlikely to win, and the Democrats may be focusing their resources. There's an opportunity, at the very least, to get some publicity, but I don't know. It's limited resources, et cetera, et cetera. But I appreciate the call.
Okay,
thanks.
Thank you.
Have you seen that Trump is scared that Missouri will turn purple with Hawley's seat? Lucas Kuntz is a huge contender and is right on Hawley's ass in polling. It's beautiful to see. Don't discredit a purple Missouri, but the biggest Democratic AG candidate had a mental breakdown over Springfield-style cashew chicken and went full anti-Semitic on her Democratic AG opponent. Wait, they're both Democratic AGs? I don't quite get it. Ramona, I have to agree with your caller earlier who said you guys are really good on trans rights. Pretty much every other leftist political podcast web show hosted by cis people has made some incredibly boneheaded comments, but MR has been consistently on the right side of this fight. Thanks for all you do. Oh, and people are indifferent to you on Lex, Emma.
Thank you.
Never heard of that one.
Good to know. I mean, either.
I haven't heard of that. Destiny's divorce attorney. Hey, Sam, I'm late to the show, but have you given your take on Bernie's Face the Nation appearance? Have not. Wasn't even aware.
I saw APAC.
APAC promoted
repackaged
it.
part of it, but I can't watch any of that anymore.
It's like, yeah.
It's sad. I think he should just not do media. If you're not gonna do a ceasefire, just don't do media. I don't know.
Here is let's do. I haven't seen it. I'm not terribly excited about it. I mean, I really think that, like, in terms of the Biden administration, from a historical standpoint, this is going to be the part that history. This is going to be a big part of the historical record, which, in some respects, sadly for that guy, I don't really care about people's legacy, frankly. But in the event that he was to get a second term, some of the legislation that they passed and the idea of, like, getting through COVID, I think in the end, relative to other countries, the U.S. is going to have fared better through COVID, at least in terms of the economy, because of the money that we pumped in at other places. Again, there is a long-term structural problem with the U.S. economy. So we're really, we're comparing it to a baseline that may be not necessarily the best for people in general. But
I mean, he would have been remembered at least fondly for having one of the more pro-labor administrations in a while. Like, I mean, the Inflation Reduction Act was fine, but there were think pieces before all this fashioning him as the new LBJ or whatever of the Democratic Party, which is silly, but like LBJ also had a massive foreign policy failure in the Vietnam War that was a blemish on his legacy, and Biden hasn't passed anywhere near the domestic policy that
Right.
LBJ did.
Right. One of those areas being in climate, where Joe Biden, I think at best, has a mixed record. Here is a climate protest where it was an event that was honoring ExxonMobil CEO Darren Woods in New York City. This happened Friday, right? And to be clear, like I think it's arguable whether this guy deserves criminal culpability for what his corporation has done to the planet. But certainly, this is a corporation that deserves civil liability. They are quite aware. They have their own internal scientists who know and have known for years and years and years that their product was contributing to the demise of, or the instability of, our civilization. And through climate change. But here is
and at the very least, he should not be being honored at a gala.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, so like what happens to him here is bare minimum.
These are the folks from Climate Defiance protesting. They get in everywhere. They're quite good at this.
Lifetime honorary CME member. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to present the 2023.
Darren Woods is a climate criminal. How can scientists be honoring this man who increases production of oil and gas every year? I don't care what he does to his own emissions. As long as production goes up, Darren, we're fucked. We're fucked because of you. You make $20 million a year killing millions of people.
Told us that it was our problem, that we need to recycle and compost. Fuck that. No, we need to end fossil fuels now.
Exxon lies and people die.
Let's be real. Let's follow the fucking money.
Students here, join us. This man is a sick fuck killing your future. This man kills people for money.
Stop colonizing other planets or protect this one. And I want the freedom to be human being without
I like that guy behind it.
scared for my life. I'm scared for your
What a fancy room.
Why are we giving an award to this guy?
Oh, everybody's leaving.
There you go.
Sorry we ruined your party.
You're welcome. Good night. We're leaving now. We're complying. We're leaving the building.
Yeah, that's it. You fucking disrupted the damn meeting.
Yeah.
And people die.
Exxon lies and people die. Exxon lies and people die.
I love it. It's the best. The best.
That's right.
That is fantastic. I love it. Like, you guys disrupted the meeting. We did?
Oh, no way.
Seriously?
No, you can't have the meeting now?
Oh no, in that gold-plated room. I can't get over the fact that this guy's being honored. Like, it's not enough for him to make tens of millions of dollars a year. He has to get, like, you know, as the rest of the planet burns, he has to get some sort of gala in his honor. There's no honor in that in what he does. He's a vampire. And a destroyer. It's only dishonor should be thrown his way.
Fantastic work.
Yes, those folks.
But why
rock.
the swearing?
I know.
Why all the swearing?
This was the Chemical Marketing and Economics STEM Awards ceremony.
Oh.
Where was
I
it?
think
in
we
New
can see
York,
why
do
they
you
gave
know?
him an award then.
Oh,
Chemical
of
marketing.
course, of course.
I gotta
Of
know where that
course.
room was.
This is like literally like the pay to play.
It's yeah.
How do I get with this type of donation, you'll get an award. This is like the way to do it too. It'd be like me donating to the Institute for Promotion of Political Podcasts.
Yeah.
That's what that would be. Like the or even more specifically, the institution to promote political podcasts that start with the word majority. I like to give to charity, and
right.
But good for the climate defiance people. It
And there is something just so delicious about the profanity on the sign. Each hit there, and
that I love.
In contrast to the
Location?
The location.
Yeah,
right?
I was gonna say we should gamify this protest. Like, if you get certain multiplier for how fancy the room is, for how many monocles are in the background, like for how many how expensive the dinner is that you're disrupting.
Right.
The value of this, honestly, is so. I think it's important because they're going to go home and they're all going to complain about how their party was ruined by these protesters. And 80 to 90% of the people they talk to, 95% of the people they talk to are going to be like, oh, that sounds horrible. But there's going to be 5% that are going to go like,
yeah,
that is a good point they had. Now, maybe it's more than 5%, but I'm just saying, like, even if it was just 5%, and it also sort of like emboldens, the workers in that place. Like, look at what these, and they're young people. They're not kids, but they're young people.
Right.
Look at what they're doing. Look at what they're willing to risk.
Right.
I mean, it is a really, the climate defiance folks in particular are really great.
I mean, yeah, that whatever 10% of people, or the 90% or that Simpsons thing where it's like, am I out of touch? No, it's the kids that are wrong. That's
I
all.
ask in my 3-piece suit.
Yes, right.
Prague. COVID numbers are worse than 89% of the pandemic now in terms of infections. Wear a mask, people. Yeah, and we deaths are up there. I think we're now at like 1,700 a week.
It's hard to tell because the CDC, I feel like, it's a lagging.
There's very
update
few places that record it. I think there's only one. I follow somebody on Twitter that record these deaths
weekly.
And very difficult though. But again, I mean, and I will say that I am guilty of forgetting my mask sometimes. But for the most part, when I'm on the subway, I'll wear a mask.
Yep.
I've obviously got the most recent shot, and between that and getting COVID in September, I'm hoping I'm in pretty good shape. Calling from I don't know, country code 46. Where would that be? Country code 46.
Is this me?
It is you. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
I'm. This is Chris. I'm calling from Kattegat.
Chris from Kattegat?
Kattegat. It's the waterways between the Atlantic Ocean and the Baltic Sea.
Okay. I will.
I don't want to be more specific.
I understand. I should say I had not heard of that, but okay. I thank you for allowing.
Scandinavia.
Okay. All right. Great.
I have a question for you, Sam.
Sure.
When did World War II start?
Well, for whom?
Right. If you ask most people, they would say 1939.
Mm-hmm.
In China, they would say 1937, probably. Though actually, Japan invaded Manchuria, I think, in 31. Italy invaded Ethiopia in 1935. So, World War II.
And if you ask most Americans, they would say December 7th, 1941.
Probably, maybe. But my point is, World War II wasn't one war. It was several conflicts that eventually coalesced into one giant global super conflict.
I get where this is going, as if we need some other sort of like a darker vision of the future. But go ahead.
Right. So what I'm saying is World War III has already started. Only this time there will be no one left to debate when it started.
All right. Well, I mean,
Can you?
I don't know if you can give us a guarantee on that, which I'm, glad about. But what?
But why do you say that? Basically, yeah. And when did it start?
I mean, but you look around. You have war in Asia, war in Africa, war in Europe. I think this is the big one.
Well, I mean, all right. I mean, okay. I mean, I suppose. I mean, we've had war in a lot of different locations, that were happening simultaneously on the planet on many occasions. Yeah. I mean, if let's put it this way, let's say to speculate. Let's say within the next 6 months, we start to see more negotiations in terms of Ukraine and Russia. Would you?
Yeah, that's not where it's going.
All right. Well, yeah. So elaborate. Oh, you're saying you're saying that there's no negotiations happening in Ukraine and Russia.
I'm not keeping up to date with that exactly. I've kind of actually drifted out of.
Well, I mean, come on, Chris. If you're going to predict World War III, that's one of the major conflicts, right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you have all these conflicts and they're all, it's like a perfect storm. They're all.
But is it though? I mean, because I mean, honestly, and I'm not being coy here, but has there ever been a time in where we haven't had multiple ongoing conflicts?
No, but not like this. I mean, yeah, all throughout history there have been conflicts, but they're all so interconnected now. I mean, if you look at like Sudan, it's like, the one side is backed by Russia, the other by the West. And so you have this, I mean, I don't even know exactly how the bloc's going to form. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't see a way out of this.
Well, I mean, I can tell you a way out of it, that within, the next 3 to 18 months.
You're sounding like Thomas Friedman.
I'll give you that's my FU. Well, the only reason why I say 18 months is because I find it hard to believe that Putin would make a deal in Ukraine before the election. That's the only thing that's the only reason why I have that type of window. But I think
Putin has already won. Like he's got everything that he's interested in Ukraine, the Donbass Premier, he's got that.
Yeah, he has that. I mean, he has that, but he also
and he can play the kind of the war of attrition for much longer than Ukraine. So he's already won.
He can, but
won.
not necessarily without not paying a price domestically. I don't know if you recall, there was almost there was a coup attempt there recently.
That mercenary, whatever, baggy guy.
Yeah. But
yeah, I know, but he just seemed like, I mean, he was just, Russia's falling apart too. Like,
okay,
so,
well, Chris, I mean, I
don't know why that would make me less likely to worry.
Well,
I mean,
listen, Chris. I mean, I think that I get your point, but I think that it's also I can also imagine a scenario where they get into a negotiated settlement in Ukraine and in Russia. Now, maybe conceivably we'll have some type of conflict with China. I don't know. But, there have been many precarious times in the past 75 years.
We hit a Chinese embassy with a NATO hit a Chinese embassy during Kosovo. Like, things are.
I mean, we came close to.
No, I know. Yes, I know about the Cuban Missile Crisis. I know that we've come close to this before, but now it's not slowing down.
Well,
and I think this is. I mean, if you compare the Cuban Missile Crisis, I think one big difference is, like John F. Kennedy. At that point, he was like a young guy. He had a newborn son. Now, Joe Biden, he's old, about to
Chris,
die.
I think
his eldest son is dead, and his only living son is a fucking embarrassment.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I
think he kind of has a death wish.
All right. I appreciate the call. I think when you start to move into the territory of this is Joe Biden's suicide attempt, I think it's. I mean, listen, you could be right. You could be right, but I have to say,
and it's not to downplay the horrors that are in the world right now.
No.
Obviously.
I'm just saying that, as a matter of calling into a call-in show, that's sort of a conversation ender. If we're on an inevitable path to global annihilation because of World War III, and you're gonna predict this based upon Joe Biden really just being incredibly agitated with his sort of fail son. I think that I don't know what to say. I think.
Did he drop off?
Yeah, I think
well, look, I mean, it's. I understand feeling a little bit doom and gloom in this period, and if you're up in Scandinavia, it's cold as hell up there. So I get it, but
yeah, there's a
not
book.
a lot of sun.
I can't remember who it's by that makes this argument that we're already in it, and I think we're definitely in a situation where things are
turning. Is it that one?
No, it's not. I don't read that stuff, but it goes. I think it's there's a lot of escalation and militarism on the rise in the world, and that's a big problem. But I also don't know, if we're going to have this kind of definition, well, maybe this is World War IV, actually, and Vietnam and Korea and all that stuff was World War III. Because, I think that stuff was as acute and troublesome as what we're seeing now.
I also think that the interdependence that we have with our biggest, supposed rival, that being China, the economic interdependence, there's a lot of interests on both sides that I think, financial interests that drive a lot of these things. It's one thing to produce all this weaponry to sell to Israel, or really to the U.S. government to give to Israel. To bomb Palestinians. That's all still within the interests of a lot of big money. I'm not as quite convinced that a U.S.-China conflict would do that, and I certainly don't think that Russia has the means in which to sustain something like that. Dog kissing expert. There won't be any Chinese-U.S. wars as long as Taiwan has a state company that is one of only 2 or 3 that holds the expertise to make 2nm chips. China can't risk Taiwan becoming a battleground and losing access to important military technology. I mean, I
think that's partially true. I think like people say like China could take over Taiwan, but if they tried that, I don't think the TSMC, I think is the silicon fabrication company. I've listened to, I think it was on American Prestige, that the ability for them to just hope that they'd be able to like continue the production process seamlessly is a little bit far-fetched.
Yeah, I think there's enough of like an international economic elite that
and we should be encouraged. Like that's the type of globalism I encourage. I like that there's commercial ties between Taiwan and mainland China, and I think we should be encouraging that, regardless if they want to both call themselves China or not. Just keep working with each other as opposed to against each other.
But that is that is exactly an opposition to U.S. policy on that front. We do everything we can, I feel like, to sever that.
I think we do more to make sure that we're not as dependent on that relationship. But
we're trying to build our own silicon fabrication stuff here. I think I'm not sure how great that's going now. I've heard some bad things, but
that would be about the dependence, but like, I mean, the freaking Pelosi going over there, I guess that was considered more rogue.
Oh,
that's about the the fomenting that kind of nationalism to sever that.
The sanctions are super stupid. Like with one of the main video or graphics cards that's also used in AI production, but made by NVIDIA, is outlawed in China. It's the top end one, so you can't even get it in there. And it's just like they make the chips for that in that island
right over there. Yeah.
What are we doing?
All right, let's get to George Santos's tour that he's on now. What are we calling this? The Vengeance Tour 2023. Let's hope this goes into 2024.
He's going bad, or he's breaking bad here, because before he was not bad apparently, but he's going hard.
Here he is on The Point with Marsha Kramer. What show?
It looks like a news show, but I've never.
Oh, this is CBS New York. It's a local. Okay. It's a local CBS New York. Santos is doing the local thing, which is too bad, because he should be on national television, because it would certainly helpful in terms of getting rid of some Republican lawmakers. But here he is on with Marsha Kramer.
Keep talking about corruption. So after you left office, you vowed to file ethics complaints against a number of Congress people from the New York metropolitan area. Mike Lawler, Nicole Maliotakis, Nick LaLota, and of course, Rob Menendez from New Jersey. Why, and have you?
Well, I mean, Nicole Malio Stock Tips, as I call her now, I mean, she's insider trading, and it's almost evident if you look at her disclosures. I mean, it's not hard to see.
How do we prove that?
Oh, it's very easy. She receives classified briefings as a member of the Ways and Means Committee. It takes a very competent FBI officer to go look at her trading and how it works, and just look at her communication. This is all digitized these days. It's not hard to see a person saying, hey, do this trade, just got a good tip.
She's pushed back on that, though.
Yeah, well, they all push back. But can somebody explain to me, how is it that she miraculously becomes a member of the committee, and then she's doing trades on NYCB with the Signature Bank collapse just the day before, having an 80% stock hike? That's not a lucky trade, Marsha. That's a very well-informed trade.
So Mike Lawler tells me...
Well, here's the real question. How does he know this?
Well, I was just thinking that if he knows this because he's like, damn, I should have done that.
Yeah.
Or he got the tip and just didn't have the cash.
Either way.
Like, I mean, this guy, I think anything that is like even remotely corrupt that's going on around this guy, he is there. And I don't think he is terribly discerning as to this is like a high-end crime or a low-end crime. Like, wait a second, did somebody, did
I miss an edge here?
Wait, is there another veteran I can scam?
And again, this is just all my opinion, but he strikes me as someone who, if somebody was ahead of him in line at the congressional commissary and used their credit card to buy something and happened to leave it on the counter, he would pick it up and buy his lunch with that credit
Oh
card.
yes. Oh
There's
yeah.
certain people, some of my friends are just really good at knowing who to ask for weed. And I think Santos is like the guy who know to like, is there an edge being played here? Or an angle? That's fine.
I like him wearing all black here. It reminds me of in 2007, it's like, forgive the football reference, but in 2007-2008 season when the Giants beat the undefeated Patriots, Michael Strahan and the whole Giants team, they wore all black, and they said, we're either going to a funeral for the Giants or going to a funeral for the Patriots. And this is what George Santos is doing. He's going down. I mean, it's his funeral. He's got how many charges about it? But it's also going to be a Nicole Malio stock tips' funeral as well.
I would not discount the possibility that he's also now in an improv group and doing improv.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
one of the good liars now, but he's the best liar.
Yeah. I mean, give that man his Oscar.
There it is. George Santos continuing on with his tour.
Yeah, nice to help people book shows, I guess. How long is he going to be a guest on?
He just went on Z-Ways. I
watched that.
She has a Showtime show, right? That's her thing. So in terms of national media, he just did a sit-down interview with her, which will be hilarious, most likely.
Yeah, Z-Way's a funny interviewer.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got here. Which one should we do? 9 or 10?
9 probably.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've been watching the show for any period of time, you'll know that we have taken Dave Rubin at his word when he said that there's a huge shift in the country. Well, first off, when he said, like, I'm a real liberal, just the left has gone awry, and then to like, I'm a centrist. Actually, no, I'm on the right. And we've watched Dave Rubin move. I mean, Dave Rubin's been on a journey. And we watched when he said I can feel something happening in the country and people are leaving the Democratic Party. And we should say that he was able successfully to time that right before the biggest turnout the Democrats have ever had, 2 different occasions, actually, in terms of elections, that being 2018 and then 2020. And then I think I wasn't following in 2022.
So he's well-traveled, but he hasn't learned a lot.
No, he keeps going around and round in circles. And now he thinks that atheism is dead at a time where people are becoming significantly less religious. It's sort of fascinating to watch this.
Because wasn't this his thing?
Well, that was ostensibly his thing. Just like an
anti-Arab, anti-Muslim atheist.
Sam Harris was also one of these new atheists who just oddly, somehow he was a little bit more atheist when it came to, let's say, Islam than he was with other religions. And if you go back, and I don't know if there's any record of this, but I certainly was aware of it at the time. If you go back to his early days as he starts to get into politics, as opposed to him being a meditation guru or a mindfulness guru, you will see that he would tour the country and the majority of places he was going was actually like temple brotherhoods, which is like sort of like, I don't know what the equivalent is in churches, but like this is like where like, and now I imagine maybe they're a little bit less gendered in Reform temples, but like this is sponsored by like the group of guys who come, they don't go to Hebrew school anymore. They're all adults. But they get together and they'll have like, cultural things. And one of them was always Sam Harris, oddly coming in to talk about atheism. But I suspect his atheism was a little bit more specific. But anyways, here is Dave Rubin and Brett Weinstein. Now, this is the Weinstein who was the
anti-vaxxer.
Oh, the anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of which really weren't no longer necessary, many of which were still essential, but for reasons that were not literally explained in the documents in question. And I know because for a while, I was pretty close to the only evolutionary biologist trying to bridge this gap and speaking to religious people and saying, look, My colleagues are telling you you're sick with a mind virus. I know that's not right.
Can we just pause there? So what he's saying is the scientists were telling religious people they're sick with a mind virus. That is actually language that you use, Brett.
Yeah.
Like when I say people are like religious or whatever, I don't say that's a mind virus. I say that's a long sort of traditional superstition that people like.
I think we specifically talking about is the idea of intelligent design, which was very popular in the late aughts. And again, that is not how scientists really talk. Maybe in private they say this to like it's like a mind virus, but they're not going out to like the religious community and saying that. It's sort of strange. But this is like this reeks of the straw manning that Brett Weinstein like launched his podcast career with by quitting from what was it, Oregon State Evergreen because he refused to participate. What was it, like the slave day?
The day of absence. He thought was racist. I mean, this is after he had became a sort of focal point for racial divide on the campus by saying that the union agreed upon contracts with regards to diversity. He had a big problem with that and said that was the union being taken for a ride by wokeness. So he had a few things going on there with
big labor guy.
Yeah.
My colleagues are telling you you're sick with a mind virus. I know that's not right. Doesn't mean that what you think took place literally happened, and we have to have that conversation. What if what you believe is important but not literal, right? Getting there from an evolutionary perspective, if we could have done that earlier and not temporarily flirted with the idea that, simple atheism was somehow a sophisticated way of navigating through life, then maybe we could have, maybe those people who had long-standing traditions that contained wisdom that might have prevented this would have had more power when it mattered. I really think that's a possibility.
So you must be pleased then in that there doesn't seem to be much of an atheist movement left in America. I don't know if pleased is the right word, but it does, I think that the Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson debates sort of put an end to that movement in America.
Pause it for a second. I mean, this is like so myopic that it is fascinating. There is no debate about atheism anymore.
No,
He's just really
the atheist movement.
No, the atheist movement. He's just talking about like sort of, to the extent that there's not, an atheist movement in this country, it is the dog catching the car type of situation. Like we are down to like where it's sort of like broadly just stuck with fundamentalists. And the idea that you can argue with fundamentalists about intelligent design, or that you can sort of negotiate this way, it's absurd. We're talking about. I
just want to say,
just to be clear, that there is in Texas a woman who has a fetus that doctors, scientists all say is not viable, and that to not abort it at 20 weeks will mean that ultimately she may have to have a C-section and destroy her ability to have other children, never mind putting herself at even graver risk. And Texas is essentially forcing her to carry that fetus to term, or at the very least, continue to carry it while they decide what they're going to decide for her. And if you don't think that's a function of religious fundamentalism, I got a story about Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson putting the atheist movement to rest in their great debate series, which nobody ever heard that happened.
Never heard that happen. I mean, as somebody who was a new atheist, I literally had a Richard Dawkins Foundation T-shirt in 2008 that I was always too ashamed to wear outside.
I mean,
which
even
is
then
ironic
you knew
for an out T-shirt. But that stuff, no one cares about that because the sort of clash of civilizations frame for what's going on in the world, whether it's Israel, Palestine, or wherever, is bullshit. It wasn't actually explanatory, and actually there's much deeper things like politics and political structures and things like that you have to deal with the actual history as opposed to just a few charlatans on YouTube talking about the Quran.
Yeah, and which ideas are better or whatever. It's inherently racist, people understand. But I also have to push back on the notion that there was like this mass atheist movement. Like there has been a precipitous decline in religiosity. So like if that's his definition of an atheist movement, then there's no signs that it's declining. And in fact, religiosity has precipitously declined for decades at this point. But like in terms of political movement, I don't know what the hell he's even talking about. No, because he's talking about media.
Yeah,
he's talking about Bill Maher. He's talking about Sam Harris. He's talking about their view count.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's so myopic.
And that's
the only thing that's
exactly.
happening is literally in his very narrow bubble of a world. But let's continue.
Jordan Peterson debates sort of put an end to that movement in America.
As they should have, but I'm not thrilled with what I'm seeing replace it. And I think there's let's put it this way. If we take your question about what could we have said to the people of 1995 to get them to save us from...
He's not, you can go back. They're not thrilled with what's replacing it because the people that are replacing it are not them. Because they are now losers in the eye. Like they're basically on the decline when it comes to right-wing media. And so they're lamenting the fact that they don't have the influence that they once did. That's all this is. But sorry, you can go back.
And I think there's let's put it this way. If we take your question about what could we have said to the people of 1995 to get them to save us from the world of 2023, the coming calamity that is going to happen if we just simply embrace the religious doctrines, philosophies, and values of the past and hope that we can now ride out the storm, that's when we could stop now by having a conversation that says, look, it was wrong to dispense with these compendiums of wisdom that we've been handed in all of these traditions. But
sorry, we missed
let
me just back up. We missed a little bit of context, which is that this conversation started off with them talking about how 1995 was when we achieved the closest to Enlightenment values, and it's all been sort of downhill since then.
What was it in 95 that achieved that?
Just less wokeness. People were, they could make jokes back then.
Oh, right. That's true. Yes.
I think one sort of thing later that comes up like maybe 20 minutes later is Dave Rubin's like, the gay marriage thing, it was glad that we added that since 95. But
right. Right.
Of wisdom were built by natural selection in an environment we no longer live in. And so we are stuck in a terrible problem, which is you can't embrace the solutions of the past to get out of the problems of the present, and you can't abandon the solutions of the past because they're outdated, because you'll end up abandoning all sorts of stuff that matters in ways you don't know about. So that is, I don't want to candy coat it.
Yeah.
There's no simple solution to that doesn't involve repeatedly injuring ourselves as a civilization as we discover which fraction of those traditions is still relevant, which fraction has become toxic and inappropriate, what it should be replaced with. That's a very long-term puzzle that you can only solve if you're careful about it. There's no solution you can deliver in the present and say, here's the subset of those traditions that's still relevant, here's the part that needs to be replaced, here's what it needs to be replaced with. That's an evolutionary process that's going to do it.
What does that tell you about the evolutionary process of the forces that have led us here on the negative side? So if the forces on the positive side and the ideas of classical liberalism, let's say, and the things that have been good for the last 250 years, if those are pretty good but clearly
maybe wokeness
faltering,
evolved.
What does it tell you about the bad ideas that somehow got into the system?
There are a couple of concepts.
Know what he's talking about.
I'll step back 1 second.
Yeah.
Just to decode this a little bit, the real grievances they have but don't want to specifically address is Sam Harris thinks COVID is real.
Yes. That's what's so funny about this. This is all just a subtweet as to like, this is just so petty. These guys are on the outs with this, like Sam Harris is no longer like offering his intellectual imprimatur to them, which of course was also always like sort of built on a house of sand, or as I should say, like a foundation of sand anyways. parlayed a good career as a mindfulness, podcaster into something broader. Or he was his philosophy too, as I recall. He had all the thought experiments about torture, just oddly around the time where the country was actually debating the legality and the efficacy and the morality of actual torture, not thought experiment torture. It's just unbelievable. Nerds don't argue about God on stream anymore. Atheism is dead. Left for Beret says as a question. Indeed. We got to just update on this story about we talked about this on Friday. There is we told you this story about a 31-year-old woman who is 20 weeks pregnant. She, her fetus has a genetic problem known as trisomy 18. Cox learned she was pregnant for a third time in August, right? That's weirdly stated, but she learned that she was pregnant in August. She had been pregnant 2 times before. She was told weeks later that her baby is high risk for a condition known as trisomy 18, which has a very high likelihood of miscarriage or stillbirth and low survival rates. This is according to her lawsuit. Doctors have told Cox that if the baby's heartbeat were to stop, inducing labor would carry a risk of a uterine rupture because of her 2 prior cesarean sections, and another C-section at full term would endanger her ability to carry another child. Attorney General Ken Paxton says that she doesn't reach the criteria to get permission from the state to end her pregnancy. And so he, after it was found in a Travis County court that she should be allowed to have control over her own body and have a divorce to avoid destroying her reproductive organs or ability, Ken Paxton took it to the Supreme Court of Texas, and they basically said, we're going to give a temporary restraining order for the lower court ruling to go into effect. We don't know how they're going to rule on this. We know that literally with every day that passes, Cox's health and ability and reproductive health is put at a greater risk for a fetus that the doctors have said, and you can't say anything with assuredness ever. I mean, in terms of like medical outcomes, but has a incredibly low chance of being born alive. And in the event that the fetus was born alive and became a baby, that baby has a very low chance of not dying within the first month. And this is the future. It's the present too, where you need to petition a court to end your pregnancy, even if it's a threat to your health. And that's Texas for you. And, there are one of the implications of Donald Trump winning the election and having the opportunity to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices. That's it. We've got to go. Folks, that ends the call-in portion of our program. We'll read a couple IMs, and then we'll head out. Prague, new COVID numbers, yes, are worse than 89% of the pandemic in terms of infections. Please wear a mask. Read that already. John the Strange. This whole thing with Israel versus Palestine fits Bonhoeffer's theory of stupidity to a T. removing the hyperbole, it boils down to one group of Semites attacking another group of Semites because they don't believe in the same thing. I think reducing it to a religious conflict is also, I think, a little bit stupid. It's not like Jews and Muslims haven't been able to coexist or live together or thrive at certain times. This is a function of people being dispossessed of their homes.
And when you do that, when you reduce it to a religious conflict, you aid in flattening the power dynamics at play. Because Israel is like the top recipient of the United States' military aid. And when you see it more as like an extension of a colonial project, then I think you get a better sense. And like, then when you make it about religions or clash of civilizations, it becomes about who's the more civilized one and who's the one that's a little bit more barbaric. And like, I think that's
clearly the lines, to some degree are drawn that way, but that's just because that's a convenient way of drawing the lines. The idea that there's some type of inherent or essential hatred between Muslims and Jews, if that were the case, then you would not have any opportunity for any peace accords with anyone.
Listen to Avi Shlaim's recounting of his experiences as an Arab Jew, and then you'll be able to move past what you're discussing, what you're talking about.
Yeah,
there.
It's nationalism.
And then
on all sides.
It's nationalism, and then also when you frame it like that, and again, not to come down too hard on your framing here, but just as to be instructive. Then you also aid the framing of that Israel is in some way representative of the Jewish people as a whole.
Bull Prague. Marvin Hayes, just another one of Amy Klobuchar's cases, just had his conviction overturned after 18 years in jail. Wow. Dr. Dragon Rider. I obtained a copy of Pilot Season, Sam's show, which TMR closing theme is from. Is there a way for others to get this? I had to bribe Emma and Matt for my DVDs. It's good. We're not really selling the DVDs anymore because people don't really buy those, but I've been thinking about releasing it on our YouTube channel or something like that. I'm not sure if it makes sense to do it on our channel or I should just like put it on a side channel. I don't know. Jeff from South Jersey, but that if I'm thinking about it, then you can be sure that it's going to take me 18 to 24 months to actually do anything about it. Jeff from South Jersey, I don't like my Google feed keeps trying to push me to watch this crappy Frasier reboot. But I do enjoy seeing articles that Paramount Plus PR people have to keep trying to hide the fact that Kelsey Grammer is a huge Trump supporter who loves to talk about it. Apparently, they shut down a BBC interview last week when he started to talk about why he still supports Trump. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a piece of garbage, but you'd know that if you watched the first two seasons of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Franz Brozef. Zionism came out of a declining cultural meritocratic liberalism in Austria-Hungary, a multiracial, multi-ethnic empire that was eventually dissolved into a dozen more nation states, many which exercised forms of ethnic cleansing and eventually genocide under Nazi rule. Hungarian nationalism, Polish nationalism, Romanian nationalism, all capable of atrocities. That's hardly surprising that Zionism, as a sort of nationalism that's emerged in the same context, would have end the ethnic cleansing and potentially genocide baked in. Fair. All right, three more. El Conniption. Stella the dog must be a parody of Zionism. Jonathan Armstead. I watched Netflix Leave This World Behind this weekend. It's an end of the world thriller produced by Barack Obama's production company. I recommend Majority Report fans to avoid this. Politics are all over it. It's basically its beer summit meets Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. Moderators need to ask potential presidential candidates what they plan to do after office. If their answer is lifelong service like Jimmy Carter, they pass. If they say Netflix and a Spotify deal like Barack, we should have some questions. Fair.
I watched that. I didn't know Obama had actually produced it. I thought it was a.
Which one is that?
It's a one where like the Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke go on vacation at an Airbnb, and then like basically the world falls apart. Some uncanny moments, but I'm not surprised given ultimately where the plot goes that it's Obama produced.
Yeah, it's Sam Esmail who did Mr. Robot, and he, while the first few seasons of that show were, I would say, kind of like transgressive, the rest of the show is a little bit sort of like revolution is bad because then what happens next?
Yeah.
It's like
It's on Netflix?
Yeah.
But there's some good
Those
uncanny
politics.
moments in the movie.
He's
Watch
talented.
May
He's
December.
legitimately talented, but
That's actually, decent get. Like, they've had some okay movies Netflix recently.
Wait, is that the one with the mushroom fungus thing? No.
Annihilation.
No.
Not Annihilation? I don't know which one you're talking.
Like it's a disease, like I don't know. I don't know.
No, nothing to do with that.
There's a lot of those post-apocalyptic visions on Netflix. Kowalski, Sam remembers where he was during the Challenger disaster. Matt remembers where he was on 9/11, and now everyone remember this gala being raided. Historic tragedies. The end of the world would not be good for the economy. And the final I am of the day. Matthew from Atlanta DSA. Atlanta DSA is proud to endorse our comrade Gabriel Sanchez for Georgia State House in District 42. Gabriel is an activist, organizer, and a champion for the working class who's running to fight for a Georgia that works for all of us, not just the rich and powerful. That is Gabriel Sanchez in Georgia State House District 42. Bradley, Matt, Emma, great job today. Folks, see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth